Oh, there is no way this is getting past monetization. And I'm sure I'll be fine. So yeah, Ray Zero is an isekai where, oddly enough, no truck is involved. Just blink and boom, you're in a new world with CGI horses and furries. But before we get to that, you might have noticed that this is not the winner of the poll on Patreon. And there's a good reason for that. I built this set of characters before the new 2024 rules dropped, or at least before I got the book. So these were made with the original 2014 rules, and while I will still be using some of the old stuff when I need to, like subclasses and races, I do for the most part want to stick to the new stuff with the 2024 rules. So that means all team builds and homebrew I do in the future will be using these rules, and this team here for Ray Zero is going to be the last one made on the 2014 rule set. Okay, now to the video. The world of Ray Zero is fairly different from both the real world and most other isekai settings. No Adventurers Guild or Demon King, nothing like that. There are certainly large events in the background going on, but for the purposes of this video, we are going to focus on one small part of the world, the Kingdom of Lagunica, or even more specifically, the Mathers or Roswell Mansion. Because all the characters we're talking about today happen to be from here, or at least are connected to this place. And no, we are not talking about the creepy clown man that owns the mansion. He gives me the creeps, so maybe next time. So who exactly am I talking about? Because there are a ton of different characters in Ray Zero that are great at fighting. But before you ask, no, I am not making Reinhardt. Do you know how powerful this guy is? He isn't a playable character, he is a god among men, with enough divine blessings to theoretically fight the Witch of Envy to a standstill and then cook you a delicious meal afterwards. If you wanted to make Reinhardt in D&D, you'd have to go well beyond level 20. So no, I am not building him. Instead, we are going to go way down on the totem pole to Natsuki Subaru.
My name is Subaru Natsuki! Not only am I totally clueless, I'm also broke beyond compare!
Subaru was once just a normal child living with his loving, if not outgoing family. He was athletic, doing school events all throughout middle school, and doing fairly well in them. But as he got older and others started to outshine him, at least in his own eyes, he started to do more dangerous and daring things to keep attention on him. And this did not go well for Subaru. He kept escalating his stunts, and fewer people wanted to hang out with him because of this. And slowly he lost all of his friends. And when he did get a second chance, one to make friends again and try it all over, it was too late. Subaru had forgotten how to be himself after years of pretending to be somebody else. This eventually drove him to becoming a hikikomori, a shut-in, spending his time playing video games, watching anime, and reading manga. He did still keep up with his workout routine oddly enough, doing 100 push-ups, sit-ups, and squats a day, which mind you is a single 10-kilometer run a day from losing his spiky hair and becoming One Punch Man. Who would actually have a chance at killing Reinhardt? Anyway, one late night while out buying snacks, he wasn't hit by a truck, he didn't step through a portal or any other fantastical event that normally comes with going to another world. He just yawned, rubbed his eyes, and when he opened them, he was standing in the middle of a bustling fantasy city, still holding his bag of snacks from the convenience store. And after getting mugged, this is where he met Emilia, another important character who he pretty much instantly fell in love with, before dying, like, a lot. Subaru spent a frustrating amount of time not realizing he was coming back from the dead and reliving the same day. You know what, let's take a look and see exactly what happened on his first loop. He showed up, got robbed, saved by Emilia, followed her around, saved a kid, died, respawned in front of a fruit stand, got yelled at, attacked again, fought back, died, called Emilia a slur, which, to be fair, not his fault, she told him that was her name in the previous loop, and then died again. I'm pretty sure that's the right order, I might have mixed up two different deaths, but seriously, I'm losing track already. Okay, so enough backstory and episode 1 stuff, let's talk about what Subaru can do in and out of combat. Subaru, like I said before, is actually fairly athletic, doing 3/4 of Saitama's routine every day. He also does have some basic sword skills thanks to doing some kendo classes when he was younger, but it's not until he gets training from Wilhelm, the best supporting character in the show in my opinion, that he actually learns how to properly fight with a sword. but he at least knows which end to hold, and that the sharp side is the one that hurts things. Also, I don't know if gravity is different in the Re:Zero world than the real world, but he threw Ram like a long way. I'm not really able to get a measuring stick out to check, but I would say he threw her at least like 60 plus feet? I know it's anime, but that's still impressive for what is supposed to be a normal teenager. Like, try throwing anything not specifically meant to be thrown more than 60 feet. Now imagine doing that with a fully grown woman wearing a maid outfit. He's also able to carry the weight of all the deaths he's seen and felt, but that's more of a mental load, and I don't think he's carrying that one so well. Outside of that basic sword fighting and throwing people, I guess, Subaru isn't all that good at fighting. Hell, the author has said that Subaru would lose to Otto in a fistfight, this wimpy merchant guy who can talk to animals, which honestly, I don't believe. Like, sure, it was a surprise attack, but Subaru still one-shot each of these guys with his bare hands. And I don't think Otto is taking these guys out without his animal friends. So here's what I came up with for his physical stuff, not even getting into his ability to die over and over again. So clearly Subaru is a human with these shadow-touched feet, since, yeah, I'd say that counts as being touched. I also went with the hermit background. It just fits a little too perfectly with him shutting himself away and having very little to do with his forced return to society, even if it's a different society. His stats are also not what you would think for a regular shut-in like, let's say, Kazuma, at least when it comes to his strength, since again, he works out every day. Plus, Subaru is the epitome of fake it till you make it, even if he has yet to make it so far. This makes his highest stats strength and charisma, followed by dex and con, into his next since it does take him way too long to figure out that he's in a loop. And I am dumping wisdom here. That's kind of the mental fortitude stat if you weren't using the sanity stat, and he kind of breaks more than once. Still focusing on his physical stuff first, I decided to give Subaru a few levels in fighter. Sure, he is far from a master swordsman, but he still knows the basics, and he has been shown to be able to use multiple different weapon types, like this giant club, which again, is impressive to be swinging around when Old Man Ram is normally the one doing it. And I'm pretty sure Old Man Ram has more muscle mass in one arm than Subaru does in his entire body. So because of the lack of any super specific training, I decided to go with the super basic fighter, the champion. A little self-healing with second wind, and remarkable athlete for the reasons I said before. Fighter is also technically where he kinda gets his first return by death, but the issue with that is that the ability doesn't really track well into D&D. So I kinda had to go about it in a way of just being good at not dying. So Subaru's last level of fighter is level 4, where he grabs the lucky feat despite being one of the unluckiest people in this world. It's really the best way to get a pseudo return by death, letting you reroll on failed saving throws and rolls because you've done this scenario before and you're trying to avoid another reset. And on that note, let's talk about return by death and the magic of this world a little bit. Return by death is a fairly weird ability that, as far as I can tell, isn't a super common one. I could be wrong, but at least as far as I am aware, there aren't a ton of different characters that are effectively playing Dark Souls and get to reset at a save point whenever they die. And nothing except for memories really carry over for Subaru. Items, injuries, nothing. Only the trauma of death, which for most people is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But not for our boy Subaru. He gets to relive that over and over and over again. God, no wonder he's so messed up. Now, to avoid any big spoilers, I'm just going to say that Subaru gets his return by death ability from the Witch of Envy, Satella, who is desperately in love with him for some reason, and is trying to make sure he gets through this world alive, if not mentally scarred. And of course, everyone has their own theories about the witch. My personal theory is that she is a time-looped Emilia who went back to the past from the future, but, that's not confirmed. Which, by the way, I have not read the light novel, so if you're going to talk about that, please put a spoiler tag at the beginning so I can ignore it for the most part. But yeah, Return by Death is a hard ability to mimic, because you can't really die and come back before you died in D&D, but I think I found a good-ish analog, which I found in the Shadow Sorcerer, which also happens to give him the magic he needs, but that's a bit more of a complex topic. And what I'm talking about is Strength of the Grave, a level 1 sorcerer feature, letting Subaru make a charisma saving throw when he drops to 0 HP, and if he passes, he gets to go to 1 instead. And pairing this with the Lucky Feet gives Subaru a pretty good cushion to not die with, even if his belly is cut open for the 3rd time? That is 4 separate chances to hopefully not die. And while Return by Death is a useful power, I can totally understand Subaru not wanting to spam respawn if you have to actually feel the pain of death each and every time you use it. But let's move on to magic, and to do that I need to explain how magic works in Re:Zero because it is not how it works in D&D. People in this world have something called a gate, which is kind of like a magic muscle, and once it's opened you can use it to cast magic using the mana inside your body. The other way to use magic is to form a contract with spirits, and Subaru kinda does both. In Season 1, Subaru had his gate opened for a while, but he was so bad at using it that whenever he would cast the one spell he knew, Shemok, basically a mix of like darkness, silence, and then blindness and deafness, he'd just kind of blow all of his mana at once. And he did this so much without letting his gate recover that it collapsed and he couldn't use it anymore. Thankfully though, in Season 2 he did make a contract with the spirit Beatrice, or Beako, and he is able to cast spells with her help. She is also able to use mana from his body to cast her own magic. It's still not a whole lot for Subaru, but it does give him a few more spells other than just Shemok, like this purple crystal thing. And all this to say that I made Subaru a level 5 Shadow Sorcerer, meaning he is a total level of 9. Subaru is a flawed character, the best kind, one that can grow and improve over the course of the story. He's not super strong. I'm told he gets stronger later on in the light novels, pulling a Dark Souls and memorizing attack patterns to defeat people and monsters he has no right to, but we are far from that point. He's just doing his best.
A new dawn has come across the land, a dawn of hope! Subaru Natsuki is going to make great strides today!
I have come to accept while writing this script that this is probably going to be another 30-minute or longer video. So if you aren't already, it would be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. These videos take a ton of work, but if the Goblin Slayer video is anything to go off of, you guys like these kind of videos, so I'm gonna keep making them. I can't tell you how satisfying it was to upload Goblin Slayer, and then over the course of the last 2 weeks, watch it become the most watched video on the channel, and bump this channel up from less than 500 subscribers to, at the time of recording, 4,500 subscribers. So thank you. And if you want these character files, not character sheets, different things, you can get them for $1 on my Patreon. That's also where you'll find the polls for what team builds I'll be doing next. Last week it was between Yu Yu Hakusho, Spy Family, JoJo, and Ruby. And I will tell you the winner of that poll at the end of the video, so stick around. So one issue I had with deciding who to make for this video was that there isn't really a team format for Re:Zero. They aren't a party of adventurers going out and doing quests, killing demons and stuff. Which kind of does invalidate the entire video when I think about it, but I'm too deep now to stop. So I decided just to pick characters that Subaru has fought alongside in the past, like Emilia. So let's take a look at her.
Emilia. My name is Emilia. Only Emilia.
Now I really don't want to get too far into spoilers for Emilia since a lot of that is in her movie, but let's just say Emilia grew up pretty sheltered, raised by her aunt after her mother left to do stuff. And she really didn't leave the house all that much, her only friends being spirits. And by communicating and working with these spirits, Emilia learned how to use spirit magic. But she was also clearly born with some of these powers as well. Okay, now, what is Emilia again? A human?
I'm actually half-elf.
An elf.
Didn't you hear what I just said? Listen, I'm trying to tell you that I'm a half-elf.
Yeah, I heard you.
Ah, right, okay, half-elf. Which, in this world, are seen as... well, half-elves aren't really liked thanks to the Witch of Envy being a half-elf. And Emilia kinda got the short end of the stick by also having silver hair, just like the witch. And given her backstory of kinda being stuck in a block of ice for a few years, I think the best background for her is the Fey Wanderer. She's kinda out of her element, a lot of stuff in this world is new to her, and she also uses some really old-timey phrases for some reason. Her stats are also a little more spread out than normal, for a few reasons. Despite most people not liking her for being a half-elf, she usually leaves an impression on people that has a positive impact. Sure, she lies about her reasons for helping them, but only so they don't feel like they owe her anything. Emilia is actually oddly strong, able to take down these bandits on her own without using any magic. And even if it's not her preferred style of fighting, she is able to use actual weapons. Although honestly, if she had a choice, she wouldn't fight. But this world is far from a peaceful one. Her other stats are okay-ish, like I said, high charisma, and the rest looks like this, with a tie between strength and dex, okay constitution, and I put her 8 in wisdom for a similar reason to Subaru. She kinda just snaps sometimes. And she doesn't have to deal with the constant pressure of dying over and over and over again. Now for how Emilia fights, she has 2 different ways. The first one is by using her contracted spirit, Puck, this guy. He can use her mana or the mana in the atmosphere to cast powerful ice magic. Like I said, Puck is a contracted spirit, and is almost like a father figure to Emilia. Even down to the terms of their contract, he acts almost like a dad, protecting her from things that she's afraid of, like mirrors, making sure she doesn't hide her half-elf nature, encouraging her to exercise, and to not be picky about food. But Puck is kind of his own thing and I won't be making him, but I did give Emilia Find Familiar so she can still have a floating cat to sass people with. And that brings us to her class stuff. And when it comes to making an ice-based caster in 5e, well, sadly there are not a lot of options. This is one thing I'll say about 5e is I wish there was a better thing for making elemental-based casters. Tempest Cleric is great, but give sorcerers something based on like the elemental planes. Anything. On that note, the best fit for a elemental sorcerer is going to be the Draconic Sorcerer, and obviously for an ice-based caster, go with either a White Dragon or Silver Dragon for cold stuff. This makes Emilia a little bit tougher, giving her 1 extra HP per level, and some icy skills for protection. Now we don't actually have a ton of fights from Emilia. There's the one here at the beginning of the show, a couple scenes of her in the movie, and I think we get one more in season 2, but it's mostly just her spending time in this temple and suffering. If you wanted another way to do this same kind of build, I would go with like a few levels of Sorcerer and then maybe Scribe Wither to get the same effect I'm looking for, but I don't see Emilia pulling out a spellbook and writing down or preparing new spells. And what I really wanted the Sorcerer levels for are the sorcery points, specifically for the Transmute spell meta magic, so that any spell Emilia takes can be an ice spell. Fireball? No, that is now a live shrapnel grenade. Chain Lightning turns into a heat-seeking ice shard, and so on. And all at the cost of a single sorcery point. Not that she needs to use that feature for what I feel like is her highest level spell in the show. Both Ice Wall, which is oddly high for just being a wall of ice at 6th level, but also Investiture of Ice, making her immune to cold damage, unaffected by snow and ice on the ground, and making the entire area around her harder for everyone else to stand in. But it also gives Emilia a free blast of freezing air every turn as an action. And to get 6th level spells, Emilia needs to be at least level 13. Obviously you can go higher if you want. I had half a mind to multiclass her for like a level or 2 into fighter just for this. And you know what? Sure, total level 15 for Emilia. 2 levels of fighter so she can clown on these bandits. Also, Action Surge would let her use 2 of those ice blasts from her Investiture of Ice in 1 turn, so yeah. Now I know this build for Emilia I made isn't perfect, it's actually the last one I made for this group, but I'm pretty happy with it. It lets her do most of the stuff she can do barring some light novel stuff, so yeah, there's Emilia.
Stop now and I'll forgive you. If you would be so kind as to give back what you stole.
Now this next character is, well, one of the saddest when it comes to the fanbase. Purely because she made one of the most heartfelt confessions in recent anime at the time, only to get turned down because Subaru is obsessed with a girl who at that point hadn't shown any romantic interest. Of course, I am talking about the Berserker maid, Rem.
Who is this Rem?
Who currently may or may not exist. Rem and her twin sister Ram were always close, but with Ram outdoing Rem in pretty much everything they did, and even being the reason they're alive, Rem felt like she wasn't good enough at anything. Gathering food, studying, magic. Ram just had her beat. And for the longest time, that's how things went. Rem repressed her jealousy because despite being so good at everything, Ram was still a good sister. She didn't gloat or tease Rem for it. But unfortunately, Rem still was jealous of her sister. And when a cult attacked the Oni village, well, that's a lot of villages being attacked and burnt down in these videos. I'm sure there's no correlation. Anyway, When it happened, Rom, who's still a child by the way, was fighting off these cult members and was surprise attacked, getting her horn cut off. And for Oni, their horns are very important, letting them draw in more mana from the atmosphere than they otherwise have in their bodies, letting them use more magic than a normal person. So without one, Rom would be significantly weaker. And to Rem's horror, when she saw this happen, for just a moment, she felt relief.
It finally broke off.
Of course, she was instantly filled with guilt after being happy that her sister got hurt, effectively handicapping her in Oni society, and that pushed Rem to improve, to make up for those feelings by making it so Rom wouldn't have to struggle ever again. So Rem got strong, trained her magic and her body, and became a maid at the Roswell mansion, and later went on a rampage trying to save the guy who she killed because of the power of save scumming, or love, maybe both. Now, Oni is not a playable race in D&D, at least officially. I made one a long time ago on the main channel, but no homebrew here. So I had to figure out some way for her to get this transformation. And thankfully, Rem mostly uses her transformation as a boost to her strength, not her magic. And when she's not going on a monster murder spree, she actually uses magic quite a bit, having some basic wind, fire, and ice magic, as well as a little bit of healing. And I know this might seem like an odd pick, but I went with the Beast Hide Shifter. I could have gone Tiefling and only have the horns out as like a flavor thing when she does something else, but that just doesn't fit right, and this feels a lot better, giving her some temp HP and an increase to her AC when shifted. I also went with these stats because Rem is very strong, can survive Invisible Twister, and is pretty smart. And she's not really clumsy, but I needed to put an 8 somewhere, and I wasn't going to give her the third 8 in Wisdom in a row, especially when she could smell the witch on Subaru so strongly that she murdered him over it. Now normally when I'm making these characters, I don't like to use certain backgrounds like the ruined background, mostly for balance reasons. A variant human with this background could start with 2 free feats, but I think in this case it works for Rem. So using that, I gave her the tough feat. And yeah, she is a monster when it comes to durability or swinging around a giant 30-foot long flail like a cat toy. But there is an issue with building Rem. She is clearly a barbarian, 100%. That is a mindless rage if I've ever seen one. But she also uses a lot of magic, and if you know anything about raging, it's that you cannot cast or concentrate on spells while raging. So let's tackle the rage part first and do the magic after we figure that out. Now, given Rem's refusal to die when she otherwise should, I went with 11 levels of Barbarian for Relentless Rage. When you would die, you can make a DC 10 con save, and if you pass, you drop to 1 instead of dying. This goes up by 5 every time you use it, but that could easily save you 2 to 4 times in one fight if you have a good con score. As for Rem's subclass, I wanted to add something with a little bit of magic to it, and again in the theme of not dying when by all reason you should be dead, I decided to go with the Path of the Zealot, adding a little bit of extra damage and survivability with Fanatical Focus working amazingly with Persistent Rage to give you an extra chance to stay up. And if I didn't want to focus on the magic at all, I'd just push further to 14 levels of Barbarian for Rage Beyond Death, so Rem just couldn't die, like, ever effectively. But I don't want to make her level 20, and I still do want to get some magic. And there's only one thing I can think of that technically uses magic to get stronger, while also not being a spell or requiring you to take 20 levels in Paladin. And that is the Blade Song Wizard. Yeah, I know I'm kinda contradicting myself, Rem doesn't have a spellbook either, but there just isn't a good melee sorcerer that isn't AU or homebrew, and I kinda just thought it'd be funny. It also just works with Rage because the Blade Song isn't concentration, it just lasts a minute once you start it. And like Rage, it gives you a bunch of bonuses, like adding your intelligence modifier to your AC, making you faster, and also making it easier to concentrate on spells, which you won't really be doing a lot of as long as you're using this with Rage. Meaning with her ASIs and everything up, while shifted, raging, and in Blade Song, Rem has an AC of 16. And yeah, it could be higher, with one more level you could bump up your int or your con to make that 17, but oh well. It's not amazing, but it's still pretty good. Even out of Rage, 5 levels of Wizard gives Rem 3rd level spells, so she can cover all the spells she uses in the show. Things like Ice Knife, Chromatic Orb, Fireball, and even Life Transference for healing. Rem is a great character, both in and out of combat. I know I focus mostly on combat here on the channel, but that's because I can't really dictate how a player is going to RP a certain character. This is more about recreating the fighting style and flavor of the characters, and I think I did that well with Rem. Sure, it is a weird build, one of the weirdest ones I've done so far, with mixing Barbarian and Wizard, but I still love it. Now if only there was a way to get her to wake up. Oh god, how did I turn a 4-person build into a video that's probably going to end up being longer than Goblin Slayer? Whatever. Okay, so I have one more character to make, and I've already mentioned them before. The tiny librarian, Beatrice. And thankfully, she is actually a super simple build. And without going too much into spoiler territory, Beatrice is a spirit like Puck, and somehow they're actually related in some way. And that spiritual nature combined with how small she is, made picking the fairy race a super easy choice. Just like, look at her. It makes me want to pick her up and spin her like a cat, she's so small. Oh, and before I forget, her stats look like this. She is actually a librarian, so high intelligence and wisdom is a given. Follow that with charisma, and then Beatrice fully dumps strength because just like, look at her. I bet she has trouble lifting those books. But don't let Beatrice's size confuse you. She is easily the most powerful character out of the 4 that I've built here. She has an extra dimensional library connected to the manor via her door crossing spell that lets her choose a random door in the manor to connect to her library. She can teleport, has magical arrows of stagnant time that decay whatever they hit, and can make powerful barriers. And for once, Beatrice is a character that I don't have to come up with some weird reason for why she's a wizard. She's kind of the textbook wizard. Technically her book isn't a spell book, but it's close enough for me. Her spell list is also huge, having single target and AoE versions of various spells, but she is actually pretty limited in how many spells she can use, since she has a massive mana consumption rate, but she gets over that by contracting with Subaru so she can use his mana to cast her spells with. And I mean, his gates collapsed. He's not going to use that mana for anything. Also, the relationship that Beatrice and Subaru has is just so wholesome. Despite her door crossing spell making it so he should have to check every door in the building, Subaru just bursts on through with the first door he picks pretty much every time. And despite a pretty rocky introduction, he still treats her like a little sister, even going so far as to pull her from her own self-isolation when the Forbidden Library is about to burn down and she just can't force herself to leave, even though she knows that if she stays, she's gonna die. It's almost mimicking his own status as a shut-in, but instead this time he's the one helping somebody else come out of that state. And yeah, it did take Subaru a couple attempts to get this right because again, he's kinda dumb, and there were a few deaths in that loop, including one of Beatrice's. But hey, once that save point is hit and everyone is safe, there's no trauma left. Surely, Subaru and Beatrice definitely don't need therapy. But like I said before, this build is super easy. Beatrice is a wizard, so she has like half the game's entire spell list at her disposal, and the only thing left to pick is her subclass and then feats. And given all of her space magic and changing gravity and stuff, I decided to go with the Graviturgy Wizard for all 20 levels. Yeah, I don't normally do a whole 20 level build here on this channel, but Beatrice is the exception. She's really only held back by the terms of her contract and her reclusive nature. She has so many spells, and I am not listing all of them. This video is long enough, you can pause it here if you really want to see her spells that badly. Honestly, this was the easiest build to make. She's super straightforward, I just gave her a few spells that fit, along with ones that had a similar theme to the other spells she has. Then I gave her the Fey and Shadow Touch feats, Spell Sniper for more long-range stuff, and Metamagic Adept for Quicken Spell. She only actually took a single ASI to boost her intelligence. Beatrice is just such a fun character. You get to see her go from pretty much hating Subaru immediately upon first contact, to defending him and eventually making a binding contract that links them together, to eventually having a sibling-like relationship with Subaru, even if she is very tsundere.
You were just so cute!
Okay, yeah, so I'm not sure how I did that. Goblin Slayer was a 30-minute video with a 13-page script for 5 characters. And I am writing my 14th page as I type this very line. So that's a mystery. Maybe I should scale back on some of the backstory or world building. I'm sure I'll cut something out of this part. Anyways, I know why you're still here. you're here to see what's next. The poll was super close, with Ruby and JoJo tied for the longest time, and the winner is Ruby by a whole 2%, so better luck next time, JoJo. The way these polls are going to work is super simple. The winner is made next and removed from my list, while the runner-up goes to the next poll, and the other 3 contestants are kind of chosen randomly. And if you want to vote on what comes next, my $5 patrons and up get to vote on these polls. The next one should be up as I'm speaking right now. As always, a big thanks to my testers for checking on these builds in advance and smoothing things out. And a huge thank you to my patrons. You guys have helped me out so much. You are the best. I can't give you guys enough stuff to make up for how much you pay me. But the biggest thank you goes to Ravelord, my one and only $10 patron. I'm still not sure what to give you, but I'm sure I'll think of something eventually. But that about does it for today. I will see you all next week, and as always, have a wonderful day.